It's a day for a different brand. Hi everyone, welcome back to HPI, and well, quite an exciting day. I got an email out of the blue the other day from HPI saying that they got a new crawler coming out and would I be interested in having a look and getting some content made. So here it is. Let's get it open. So here it is. The HPI Venture Wayfinder. Brand new. Not sure whether it's actually in the shops yet, but if it's not, you'll be able to get it very, very soon. Yeah, well, I've never had an HPI car. It's one of those brands that kind of everybody knows, everyone's heard of, but not a lot of people have had one recently. And I think that's kind of partially to do with HPI's kind of checkered recent history. Now, we know that they're from California, but they had a lot of trouble. They were bought by Tower Hobbies, and then Tower Hobbies went bust before they were bought. Well, did they go bust? But they were bought out by Horizon. Then HPI were bought by Rip Max in the UK. Then I don't know what happened with them. I don't know whether they went bust again. But then they were bought by some, I think it's a Dutch holding company. They've been very quiet for quite a while, but now they have released this Venture Wayfinder. Now I believe they already had, well, they have already had a Venture, which was available in a kit, like a chassis kit, or with a Toyota FJ body. Now this, I'm not sure what the body is supposed to be. You can see there, I don't know whether it's a real car, a take on a real car, or just a completely like homemade, home designed body, but either way, whatever, it appears to be available in the gunmetal or orange. I don't know which one I've got. I'm kind of hoping it's the gunmetal, although the orange would be something a bit different. And it's looking like quite an interesting truck. So let's have a quick look at the box. Just that split picture on one side. On the top we've got the main car in gunmetal and a few little features. Well, let's have a look at this side. So we've got a picture of the chassis here, front mounted motor, adjustable drag brake, okay, front and rear metal diff lockers. I think that's saying that they're metal diff covers actually. Formed high strength C-channel chassis rails, as you would expect. Wheelbase adjustable from 290 to 315mm, so that's quite interesting, having an adjustable wheelbase. All metal gear drivetrain, spare tyre included, which is nice. Centerline drive shaft angle, also quite a nice feature really, having those right in the middle. Low centre drive shaft angle. Sorry, low centre drive shaft angle. We've got the breakover angles outlined here. Those seem pretty impressive. 61 degrees on the front approach angle and departure angle of 43.5, which isn't bad at all, and hopefully quite a good breakover there as well. So overall that seems pretty good. Let's flip this over, have a look at the bottom of the box, which appears to be the same as the top but the other colour. What else have we got? Heavy duty aluminium diff covers and lower shock mounts included. Cool. bonus accessories included, completely ready to run. 7.2 volt, 2000 milliamp hour battery, charger and AAs. So this is completely ready to run, which is always cool. 3S compatible. Aluminium threaded shocks, that's nice. Roof rack, mirrors and bumpers included, cool. Waterproof electronics, nice that they are stating that it is waterproof. Crawler edition ESC, that looks like a 1060, but we will see. Let's get it open. Now, interesting that they've got more info just under the top of the box. So we've got the front rear weight bias, 56/44 to the front. So that's nice, that's about what you're aiming for. 53/47. So these are different ones that you can have with different battery positions. So if you have a front battery, you've got 56/44. You have this mid battery for 53/47. Or we can have a rear battery straight down the middle for 50/50. That's nice. That's really nice that you've got those three options there. So, which have we got? Let's have a look. It's the grey one. Excellent. So in here we've got presumably the transmitter there, the truck, and manual hidden down the side. Right, let's get it out. Quite a lot of stuff. So what have we got here? Well, I'll put the truck aside for a second and we'll have a look at what's what. Now this I think is going to be fairly obvious that this is going to be the nickel metal hydride battery. That's branded Plasma, which is HPI's own brand. Sorry to see a Tamiya plug on there, but there we go. So that obviously, if someone's just getting into the hobby, that's going to be great for them, get them going. But if you're like me and you're a bit of an old hand, then you're going to have all your own batteries. You're probably not going to use it. But always nice that it's introduced. There's also a charger here. Now this charger is great as well because it's got multiple different adapters for different territories. So 3-pin, 2-pin, European, American, with a Tamiya plug on there, so that'd be good for charging that battery should you so need it. There's also a pack of HPI's own AA batteries. I didn't know that any RC brands actually had their own branded AA batteries, but that's cool. It's always nice to see that those are included. It means people can get going pretty quickly. Here we've got a bag. Let's have a look. See what's in here. Looks like a battery tray. I think this is for the rear door. I think for the spare tyre holder. I'm sure we'll find out more. A couple of other struts and bars. Wrench with an interesting D shape on there as well. They can make that out. And various bits of I don't know, looks like drive shaft pieces. There's a couple of Allen keys in there, spare body pins and bolts, quite a few bits and bobs in there, extra body posts, so that's quite interesting. I don't know what we're going to have to use straight away, if anything. Just put those to one side. The rod end as well. Transmitter. Now, I can only imagine that HPI is now owned by a company that produces sticky tape, because there was a lot. But here we go, the transmitter. It's quite big, that's the first thing I'd say about it. It's got an antenna that pops up. It doesn't quite sit down back inside the casing, but that's okay. Quite an unusual setup there, because there's a space behind the wheel for your thumb. Yeah, quite unusual. I don't think I've got another transmitter that's like that, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But can you use it one-handed? Yeah, I think you just about can, but it's a long way out. That's a big distance to reach with that thumb. Not sure whether I like that or not. On the plus side, a nice foam cover on there and quite a nice feel to the steering. The throttle feels quite good. Quite a large throw on that. Certainly in the forward direction. We've got a channel 3 button here, single press button. This will be the power switch. We've got steering or bind button here, steering trim, I would guess, throttle trim, and a dual rate trim, power indicator, and then there are other controls here. Steering left and right, servo endpoint adjustments. So steering left and right and throttle low and high. Now, interestingly, you can't get at those. Can't get at those. But inside the bottom of the transmitter there is a little adjustment tool, so that you can stick that in there and adjust those extra 4 knobs. That's quite a nice feature, not something that I've seen on many radios. So how much we'll have to adjust those, I don't know, but I'll just pop that back for now and we'll have a quick look at the manual. Right, so other than the manual, we've got a guarantee sheet here. Interestingly, this is saying that there's a 2-year guarantee on parts other than electronics. Electronics are 1 year, batteries 3 months. But yeah, guaranteed to be free from defects in materials and workmanship for 2 years. So that's quite nice. There's a card for joining my HPI and the manual itself, which looks like a good manual. Now it's all in three languages, 4 languages. It's all in English, German, French and Japanese. But it is a significant manual. It's giving you all the things that you would expect. You know, your general how to use it, setup of your ESC with drag brake and LiPo, your on and off, how to change positions, all the things that you would expect. but in a bit more depth. It kind of reminds me of the old Tamiya RC catalogues and their explanations of things. But yeah, quite a lot in here. Quite a lot of instructions as to how to maintain things you should be checking on different scales, different time scales, gearing ratios. There's all sorts in here. This has got to be the most comprehensive manual for an RC car that I have seen in some time. So fair play to HPI. I think they've got that spot on. Too often do we see ready to runs in particular where there's no information in the manual. So the car itself, I think this bag is just over the body shell, so I'll take off the front body pins. These body pins are not going to come off in a hurry. Right, so the first interesting thing on this is the way the body's mounted. So we've got the usual 2 front and 2 rear body pins, but on the back of the truck we've got another body pin here, so we need to pull that off and then lift up the spare wheel on this holder and move that out of the way so that we can lift up the body, because on the back of the body here you can see there's a little loop on that tailgate door, and the rear wheel holder has got a tongue that fits into that to keep it in place, so it's pretty securely held in. Quick look at this body. I would say it's not a looker, but it's okay actually. I think it looks better in the flesh than it does in pictures. It's got quite a nice fitted roof rack. That's held on with body pins and O-rings on the inside. How about this? It's got clear windows. Clear windows, can you believe it? What a lovely feature. And those have actually got stickers on the outside to give it just a bit of a fade, which isn't a bad thing. I think that's quite a nice look. So you can still do something, still put an interior or something, but it's kind of like smoked glass. They've even gone so far, don't know whether you'll be able to pick it up, but we've got the wires for the heated rear window on there. That's really nice. We've also got mirrors, door mirrors, which are pretty rigid. I'd prefer that if those were either hinged, so they've got 2 bolts, a piece on the inside to fasten them to, so at least they should be pretty strong, but I'd rather see some mirrors that are hinged so that they tip out of the way, or soft rubber. But overall, feels pretty tough. It's got a nice finish, it's got quite nice graphics on it. If they just hadn't put these door handles here, I'd much prefer it, but not a bad thing. So onto the chassis. Straight away it looks like quite a nice chassis. No frills, there's no inner fenders on this, but it looks quite nice. We've got the front mounted motor there, so that's HPI's own 35 turn crawler spec motor. Looks like a 540. We've got the servo front mounted there as well, chassis mounted, not on axle. A receiver box here, which presumably has got a seal on it. If you're putting it in a box, it needs to have a good rubber seal. And the speed controller, now it looks decidedly Hobbywing, but not sure. We will see when we come to run it. I'll look into whether that is actually a rebranded Hobbywing. It says on that it's a, what does it say? Crawler spec SC3SWP3, and it's got HPI written on it. Now, whether that's the case, that it's their own, don't know, but we'll give it a go. And it's got a Tamiya plug. Ooh, we'll have to do something about that. Rest of the chassis, the rails look, chassis rails look quite hefty. They are not straight, if you look at that. They are wider in the centre and then they tuck at each end. So that's quite interesting. Most things tend to be straight, so that's saying it's had a bit more thought put into it. We've got the front transmission next to the motor, and then that going to a central box, so your central transmission here is very small, very low profile. That would certainly help if you want to put an interior in. That's going to help with that, which is cool. Battery tray there. One would imagine that will easily take a full-size LiPo. Quite a hefty cage for that mounting of the body, but that's held on with body pins to these shock hoops. Body pins keeping the height of that where it is as well, and then mounted, bolted onto the chassis and the rear bumper mount back there. The shocks, as we said, they are metal bodied shocks. Quite strange that oh, I think that just needs screwing down. The collar on that front shock was just right up to the top, but the spring is not long enough to go all the way to the top. Now you see this quite often and it puzzles me. Just why are we not putting a longer spring on? Don't know. Right, so we've got what looks like some reasonable travel there, some reasonable flex out of those, just as standard. Bumpers feel a little bit wobbly, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Might be able to take a little bit of a shock there and absorb it. Not sure about this cowcatcher on the front of this bumper. That looks a little bit wackery. We've got a couple of D-rings on there as well, plastic ones. It's not an ugly bumper by any means. Let's flip it over and have a look underneath. These are fairly hefty 3.5 mil. 3.5 mil? No, that's not right. That must be the thread on them. 6 by 93.5. Okay, so it's got the measurements on there. But they are, yeah, 6 mil metal links. Those are nice. So we've got 4 link at the back, 3 link, and a panhard bar at the front. And very interestingly, well, just first a quick look at those drive shafts. Now, those are interesting because usually with your telescopic drive shafts, you've usually got the join kind of midpoint, but this is right down at one end and it's almost full length. So there's only that tiny bit of room in there, but I guess this is also connected to the fact that, as we said, you can change the wheelbase. But then, saying that, that's probably why you've got other drive shaft parts in here. So that is quite interesting. And that's much, much shorter. So presumably this is the longest wheelbase as it is set, and then you can shorten it. Very interesting. Now you've got an interesting setup on these axles as well, because you've got a two-piece ring which is kind of bolted onto the axles, and onto that your shocks and your links are mounting, or your lower links are mounting. Now hopefully this has been improved a little bit, because this, on the previous Ventura, that was one of the weak points, that these could either break, or if you tighten them too much they'd break the axles. So hopefully that's been sorted somewhat, and those aren't going to move and aren't going to break any axles, but we'll have a look at that. Possibly the most interesting thing on this chassis is the fact that we've got steering behind the axle, which I know we do have on some of the cars, but not many, and it always puzzles me why we don't. So we've still got the servo is still reaching to the front with this link, that steering link, but then the drag link tying that wheel to that wheel is behind the axle. You can see there. But quite a nice thing. Not quite sure why we've got cable ties on all the axles. Strange. Why is that, HPI? We have got metal diff covers, front and rear, so that's quite a nice little bonus on there, just adding that extra bit of weight. We've got quite a nice clean, kind of slippy skid plate, quite like that, quite low profile, but no hard edges on it, so that's been nicely thought out. Looking at the tyres, never seen tyres like these before. They feel like they're probably going to be, they are vented. I don't know what to make of them, because they're so different to anything else. Well, there's only going to be one way to find out. They feel okay, they don't feel particularly sticky, but they do feel kind of soft. They feel like they might offer some good traction over different surfaces. Don't know. But overall, it doesn't look like a bad chassis. It looks quite nice. It's, I don't know how much it weighs. It doesn't feel lightweight, but it doesn't feel heavy. And it feels nicely balanced without having a battery in yet. So yeah, there's going to be different options for the battery here. We've got this position. I think we said we've got a front position. I'm not sure how that's going to fit. Maybe your receiver needs to move, not your receiver, maybe your ESC needs to move from here to move the battery forwards, or it can go back there. We'll figure that out. Suspension and the amount of clearance you've got a good, what, 1.5 inches, something like that, under the pumpkin. Pretty good articulation. We can just about get a food can under there, and that's quite comfortable, really. So pretty good articulation. That's front wise. Let's have a look if that's true at the back. You might say it must be, but that's not always the case. But yeah, pretty good. Quite happy with that. So the breakover looks pretty impressive clearance there. That approach angle is very steep, very impressive. I do like the look of that. And the departure angle too looks not bad at all. It lets a lot of rigs down, but this doesn't look too bad. So I've looked at a few things here. First of all, yes, the battery trays do fit your sort of standard size hard case LiPo, so that's a good thing. One thing that I forgot to mention when we were underneath is that the output shaft from that main transmission, it's got an external nut on there which you can use to loosen or tighten the slipper clutch. So that's pretty good that you can get at that without opening up the transmission at all. Now, I've been looking at some of the plastic parts and having a look at the instructions, and some of these I can work out, some of them I can't. Now, we talked about the different positions for the battery tray, this being that central position, and I think this is where I want it anyway, because if you do move it further forward, then you're also raising the height of the battery, so your centre of gravity is not going to be quite as good. So I'm going to try it in this position. It's still got a slight front bias, which is good, but it's that little bit lower. Putting the rear tray is going to be fairly straightforward. You replace this cross brace on the back with the rear tray itself. There's another piece which will bolt on to the end of the tray, and then the battery clip rather than straps, which goes onto the other end. It'll pin onto that other end, and then that clips around the battery, and you put a body pin in there. So that's quite nice. Shame there's no instructions for that. I said the instructions are very good, and they do seem it overall, but that's lacking. Now, there are instructions for how to put the front battery tray on. So we take this off, we have to flip the mountings for the sliders on there, those side sliders. Then we remove the receiver box completely, and this tray that's there for the speed controller. So that all comes out. You've got to take the transmission out to do that, and that gets replaced with this quite nice tray which has got cable routing in it as well. So this battery tray will then mount onto that, and you put your electronics further back. So that looks fairly straightforward. There are some other parts that I don't know what they're for. This looks like another servo mount, but I don't know whether that's just a spare or I don't know. It doesn't appear to be for changing it to servo or axle, so I'm not sure what that's for. There are some other parts that I don't know what they're for. There's spare rod ends. No idea what this Y thing is for. And there are these, which again they're kind of C-shaped, and they look like they would go onto the chassis rail because they've got those cutouts on, but I can't figure out what those are for either. So yeah, that's a bit strange. And there would appear to be a blanking plate for if you want to get rid of, presumably the rear bumper, if you want to get rid of all this spare tyre and rear bumper and give yourself a better departure angle, then you've got a bumper mount replacement. So that's quite nice. I quite like that. And then those extra drive shaft and body mount points and a few other little bits that I don't know what they're for. Maybe we'll figure it out, maybe we won't, but perhaps if we don't know, it doesn't really matter. Oh, one other thing that I've noticed and hadn't mentioned, the wheels themselves, they're not beadlocks, they are just glued, the tyres are glued to those rims. But what is quite nice is that you have got these screw-on hub caps, which just twist on over the top of the nut, so they've got quite long stub axles, leaving room to just twist these on, which I would like to see on most cars now, because it just makes it, if you're going for scale, it just makes it so much nicer, and a ready to run should be coming with those. Right, last thing to do, let's switch it on, just see what that, well, make sure it works and see what that low speed modulation is like before we take it out on the trails. So, transmitter on, receiver on, and we've got a peculiar buzz coming from the servo. Don't know what that's about, but buzzing. It's like it's trying to do something. And right, it's quiet, just with a bit of messing with the trim, but doing it again. So, not sure what to make of that. Steering looks okay though. Steering angle doesn't look great, but looks okay. But I do not like that noise. Well, let's have a look at the modulation with this speed controller. Pretty good. That would suggest to me that this might not be, although it looks like it might not be a low-end hobby wing, because that feels a little bit better than a 1060 and a lot better than a 1040. Not sure. All we need to do with that is take it out and see what it's made of. Stay tuned. We will have it here soon as the weather and time allows. We'll get some running. Now, if you do want to get one of these are going to be retailing for £350 in the UK. In the US, I think they're supposed to be $370. So a reasonable price for a fully ready to run that's got quite a few what might be considered hop-up parts. I will put links down below once they're available, and yeah, stay tuned for some running videos as well. If you found this useful, if you've enjoyed it, please let me know. Leave me a comment about what you think, or if you've had one of the original HPI ventures, please tell me about that and how you found that and what might interest you about the new one. But yeah, click that subscribe please, click the bell so you know when more videos are available, and we will see you soon with more of this and other things on RC Pi. Thanks for watching.